How much are architects and designers taught about sustainability during their training? Michael?
We were having this discussion earlier, and actually if you go back to when I went through education, fairly little. There was an understanding that something had to be done, but it was more based on energy use rather than the specification of suitable materials. It is only once you pass your degree level, certainly at my time of education, you could then specialise, you could go into a specific tutor group, and that tutor group would be led by a number of tutors that may have an interest in a certain field. One of them could have been climate change, one of it could have been relating to technology in terms of using computers to generate ideas. But sadly, at the time that I went through my education, very little. Having spoken to other members of staff, colleagues, contemporaries, it has shifted. There is a greater interest, of course, but I'm not entirely convinced that actually the education system has taken a full grasp of this and entered it into the syllabus within education. I don't know what involvement you've had with schools of architecture or other departments relating to architecture, but we see, certainly based in Cambridge, it's a specialism rather than it being mainstream.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think my education was probably very similar to Michael's. It was of an interest to to quite a few of the tutors there at the school I was at, but it was a passing interest, and it wasn't until till very, very recently that any students have come to our practice with any kind of interest, or maybe not interest, but certainly any education which has got any basis on sustainability. We've got a girl, she's an architect now, who is involved in research, sort of really kind of scientific end of sort of biotechnology, and that's her own interest, and she's pursuing that, and we're very interested to see where that takes her. Another girl who has been who's just sort of finished, she's with us now, and she actually used Revit to measure carbon in the project she was doing. But I think that was, again, probably her... No, I think that was actually the school that actually pushed them in that direction. But I know other schools where they're only just starting to think about it. It's certainly not standard practice. And I think the further you can go, as you get to diploma level, you can forget all about it if you want.
So are you getting some education now from CPDs, or where do you learn about sustainability?
Well, we're constantly learning. I know it sounds cringeworthy, but we are constantly learning all the time. So on a day-to-day basis, in terms of researching a particular product, then naturally we're gleaning information from, it'll be a website or sales literature. In terms of getting further education from a structured arrangement, generally it's through CPDs, webinars, or I'm still old school, I will still take an architectural periodical, pick it up, or it could actually be a trade journal of some sort, and you gather and garner information from that. And occasionally, even when you have a sales representative come in, you meet with them and they provide a certain amount of information. Although having gone through that transition of having, as a result of the pandemic, everything seems to be online. It seems to be favoured to actually have CPDs over a lunchtime or early morning, and you pick up your information that way.
I think the challenge really is getting that information disseminated across the office. We have a team who are interested in it, and we're looking into, how we can disseminate the information, and we're involved with Architects Declare, and they run a series of courses, and there are other sort of organised ways of, getting that knowledge. But it's actually really complex. So you tend to target the areas that you need for the projects you're working on. So, it can end up being quite specific, but that broader knowledge is something which we need to get the whole office interested in.
I think also, just to drop back to the education side of things slightly, one thing that architectural education fails at is giving students the opportunity to have hands-on. we've noticed as a result of a number of students coming from Central European countries, there is a requirement that they have to work on site, regardless of gender, for a period of time. And having these students either through an internship or have stayed with us, we find and have noticed that their understanding of how the building is put together is far greater than those that have come through the UK system. I'm not suggesting it's a huge failing, but it's encouraging to note that they have been able to appreciate, for argument's sake, how a brick is laid one on top of another, how a block is laid, how you would actually fix timber. And I think that grassroots level of understanding of material component, the physicality of what it is that they're looking to use is desperately important. Everyone knows what a block is when you go into School of Architecture, but they don't necessarily know the strength of it, its potential use. It could just be used as a facade. It could just be used structurally. It could be beneath the ground. And therefore, that's what's important at an education level. And in terms of, sort of picking up on the CPD aspect, naturally the RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects, they have a seminar system in which you ensure you carry out your certain hours per year and topping up your level of continuing professional development. But it's not just that we need to rely on. There's information that's coming and can be gleaned from you as well, which is desperately important.
Yeah, I think on the sort of projects that a lot of the projects we have in our office, which are very large-scale design and build projects, getting onto site is actually quite difficult.
Yes.
That's a real challenge. So it's really nice to hear that there are places where that's really valued. But we do find that on big projects, the contractor is less keen to have young architects wandering around site very often. And well, in the last 2 years, it's been really difficult.
Yeah, of course, yes.
So that's really fantastic to hear that.
But it's also from the other side, from the suppliers into the building construction industry. We're not educated on sustainability. We come from different aspects: sales, marketing, production, operations. None of those have a base in knowledge of sustainability. So we are, in actual fact, having to invest in the knowledge, whether it be specific people that have specific accreditations or education that is on a sustainable basis, or we are ourselves having to go out and get re-educated, re-accredited to enable us to have that conversation and understanding. So when we do sit down with someone within the trade, we have some confidence in what we're saying. Because at the moment, as our own business, we are very much at the beginning of our sustainable path in trying to get where we are by 2030. And part of that is actually getting educated first and what we should be talking about, what we should be doing. And that is also something that's a groundswell. It's going to happen through younger people coming through the industry with that education behind them. And we're actually looking at the younger generation to tell us at this level what we should be doing and taking that forward with them. And that's something that's going to have to gain momentum if we want to get to this.
That's a bit of a worry, isn't it? Having started that first question when we said it's very hit and miss. But you're absolutely right. Everybody, I think we're all learning. And I think really what's happened in the last few years, there's been a massive shift to, carbon, the climate emergency. The education that we had where we did learn about sustainability, or it wasn't called sustainability at the time. No. There was no mention of carbon. What's carbon? What's that got to do with building buildings? Sun, heat. That's very understandable, but and it's incredibly complex. I think we learn a lot. Actually, and I think it's going to increase from engineers, who can actually fathom what an EPD actually means. We need things translated into pictures and graphs and diagrams, I think, to work.
And again, I to contribute to that. Certainly, in the past, it's working with engineers that have been incredibly dynamic.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have some affiliation with a college or a university in some way, and actually do a teaching program there. I'm not wanting to mention any names, but there have been a number in the past that are at the forefront of wanting to push the boundaries in terms of material use, in terms of getting the best, whether it be concrete, whether it be timber, whether it be block work as well.